Hello and welcome to another perfect video via Brandon's Garage. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to remove the transom clamp screws out of your outboard. I'm not going to use an entire outboard here because this one's easier to handle, but the process is going to be the same should yours be assembled. You're going to need some tools for this, of course. One is a large flathead, another is a large adjustable wrench. It doesn't need to be adjustable if you have a wrench that fits the size, which you'll see in a second. That'll work fine. Because of the angle you need to work on, it might be a good idea to have a smaller, large wrench. And just should you need it, some standard, everyday needle nose. So it's pretty easy. Now the way these are held on was with this little retainer inside. So, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but basically what you're trying to do is pry one side of it up. A little more to it than that. So when you get it off, you're going to be able to see what I'm doing here. Let me see if I can get a better angle. The camera's focusing in the wrong spot. You can't really see it that well, but there's a slight slot right there. And then a slight slot on the bottom half. You see what I'm looking at? See the little slots? So that's going to be your bending point. So, well, that's where the thing will bend, rather. So what you do is just kind of pry one side up. You rotate it around and give the back side a little bit of pry. Now, these retainers, should you break one, they're $7 or $8, so it's not a big deal, but don't break them if you don't have to. And that gets our retainer off. Now our plate will come off. Now sometimes your screw clamp will come right off at this point. 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. Reason being, the threads on the ends are a little bit mushroomed. I think the factory installation fixture of these things did that. I can't be 100% sure, but you can twist these things to about that point. Now if this was on the boat, this is kind of what you'd be dealing with. You'd have to put it back on to hold it on for you. Then you get your wrench and, adjust it to about there. Now, most of the holding pressure of the wrench seems to be in this area, not so much on the ends. So this has done pretty well for me. Give it a little twist the rest of the way. Rotate it down and around. A lot of pressure needed here. And I'm also pushing my little demonstration little thing here down. It's trying to pop up on me. So you just keep turning it. And our transom clamp is out. Now to put it back in, usually is a little easier. You do have the option to tap this hole if you want it nice and clean, but since our threads were a little bit mushroomed when we took the old one out, now they're nice and clean and shiny. Now you just insert your new one. Nice hole. And screw it back in. You may or may not need the wrench here. Had you use a tap and die, you probably don't. And there's our clamp reinstalled. Now installation is the same as removal. Put your little thing back on there. Retainer. That's what it looks like now. See the little slots I was talking about? See what I mean? Now what you do is you put it back over the little end. There's a few different ways to do it at this point. They make a special holding fixture that you can set inside of here, which will automatically force that back down. You can go in there with some needle nose, these guys, and just kind of bend it like so, which is usually good enough to get it to hold on there for you. Or you can just get a socket. Find a socket that fits over the stud of the clamp screw there, which also the 3/8 drive does so perfectly, which does on the other side. So put that in there and just twist it home. You'll notice I'm using a deep socket here. If you don't have a deep socket, just use a piece of wood or something on the back side. Flatten it in there. And you're pretty much good to go. It's still a little bent. I can go a little more, or I can go in there with a flathead and hammer it the rest of the way. But for the most part, it's not coming back off. So that is how to change that type of transom clamp. Let me show you the other type. So at some point in the 70s, you started seeing newer design with a nylon plastic handle and with a screw instead of a retainer. These are kind of the preferred way to go because you don't need to buy that $7 retainer. But all you need to do is get in there with a little 7/16 1/4-inch drive socket and ratchet it off. Now obviously I'm moving the handle here, you don't need to do that. Could move the ratchet, but... And then at that point, it's pretty self-explanatory. You back this out the same way I did with the wrench, or sometimes they'll come right out on their own. Let's give it a try on this one. Which, no problem. So, that'll obviously go back in, put the new screw in, you're good to go. Now here's the fun part. 9 times out of 10, these newer ones fit these guys. Goes right in, no wrench required, no stupid retainer to deal with and bend apart, and no broken retainer to replace. So if you need to replace these things often, you might just want to look for a newer one. But the old ones are cheaper, easier to come by used. Well, you can get the new ones used all day long too, but people charge more for them because they're newer and fit all kinds of things. But again, you're going by part numbers here. If you're trying to Frankenstein a motor together, you don't care about part numbers and you just want what fits. In which case, these do. Now I'm not going to sit here and bolt that back on because you get the point. But yeah, so that's basically how to change the transom clamps. There are some warnings here. A lot of, I don't know, early 60s, 70s motors that use these type of transom clamps designs also use a smaller diameter. So if you're going to get one of these transom clamps to put on your older engine, you might want to keep an eye on that. But if you're working on, a 5.5, 6 horse, 10 horse, 15 horse, 18 horse, 20 horse, something, moderately smaller, pretty much any clamp that looks like it'll work just fine. At least that's been my experience. Now there is aluminum, stainless steel versions of these. I've never come across any stainless steel ones yet, and they're too expensive for me to care to buy one. Aluminums work fine, but they do exist. Well, hope you found this video helpful. If you got any questions, let me know. Please feel free to subscribe for future how-to random videos. So yeah, have a good one, everybody.